in.
I had my washing on. I was like, you know what? Forget it. I'm not bringing it back in. It would just dry itself eventually. It's just long.
It's actually like the weather's confused.
Yeah,
but then so are we. So it's like
it's true.
Same thing, really, isn't it?
It's true.
But I do hope the weather is gonna get better this weekend.
It's not meant to. Sorry to burst your bubble on that one. It's meant to be raining into next week.
Thank you, Sharina.
I like to keep you grounded.
That you do, you actually do that, which is amazing. Okay, I think we are live, which is awesome. I believe it's working well so far. So, welcome everyone to those who are tuning in to this episode of Let's Be Real. And today we are going to be talking about chronic illness. And I think it's really important for us to have this conversation. And we're really grateful for our panel who is here with us today. And this was actually a request from one of our panelists as well, just to have this conversation. So I think I'm really excited. I hope you guys are excited. And feel free just to drop in your questions in the chat and things like that. We will definitely do all we can to filter them in. So before we pray and begin, I just want to again say welcome to the Common Room and introduce ourselves. So my name's Natalie. I'm part of the Common Room team from the Northwest, just winging it with Jesus at the moment.
I am Douglas from also the Northwest, I think. I forgot my compass. But yeah, I'm up north too, and I'm part of the Common Room team as well.
Thank you for being here. We also, we don't have Craig or Denise with us right now, but they're definitely with us in spirit, so it's cool. And we have an amazing panel with us today. So excited for you guys to meet them. You have met one of them before, and she's back with us, which is amazing. This is how amazing she is. She's just returning. So I'm going to hand over to our panel just to introduce themselves.
Okay, I'll go first. So my name is Shania, and I am from the West Midlands, Birmingham. And I am happy to be on here to share, and yeah, looking forward to hearing everybody else's story as well. So yeah.
I'm Sharina, again, repeat offender, repeat guest. But I'm from Preston, Northwest, and you are in the Northwest, Douglas, just in case you need clarification. And I'm just happy to be here, happy to share my story, and happy to hear everybody else's story.
Hi everyone, I'm Rianne. I'm not from the north, I'm from the south, London, Hackney. And I'm also happy to be here. I did not know the condition I have was a chronic illness, but thank you, Natalie, for letting me know. So I'm excited to talk about it today as well, and just to encourage others who have it.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for joining us. It's going to be a great discussion. And also, we know Sharina's been on before. Shania's mum has been on to talk about grief, and also Rianne's sister, Chelsea, has been on the very first ever Common Room episode as well. So I like it. It's like we're keeping this in the family. But for those who have something that they want to share, so a testimony, story, a topic that you want to talk about on the Common Room, then please feel free to get in touch with us. Email, Instagram, Facebook, wherever you find us, then just get in contact, and we are so happy just to share your stories as well. So before we start, let's just have a word of prayer, and then we'll get into our program. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, Lord, we're so thankful for the life that you've given to us. Thank you so much for just keeping us safe. We know we're living in crazy times, but Lord, you've seen it fit that we can be here and we can have this discussion about chronic illness. And Lord, I just pray that you'll be with Shania, with Sharina, and with Rianne as they share their stories with us. And Lord, may somebody out there be blessed, be inspired, and also, Lord, may you be uplifted in this whole conversation. In your name, I pray. Amen. Awesome. So we're going to jump straight in. So we're going to hear Shania's story. She's going to share with us, and then, yeah.
Okay, so again, thank you for having me, Natalie and Douglas and the whole Common Room team. So in terms of my story, I was diagnosed with endometriosis nearly 8 years ago now, when I was 15. So in terms of being diagnosed with endometriosis, it was quite a small, I'd say it wasn't a long time until I had my symptoms to my diagnosis. And that was one because of the fact that I realised that what I was going through wasn't normal. And also I had my mom as well that supported me and helped me realise, the pain that I was experiencing. A 15-year-old at the time when it first started, I was 13, should not be experiencing this. So we really pushed for me to get a diagnosis, which was through surgery, a laparoscopy. So endometriosis, if nobody's actually heard of it, it affects women of reproductive age. 1 in 10 women in the UK actually have endometriosis. And basically, to sum it up, it's when the tissue that's inside your womb, similar tissue is found outside of your womb. So it can be any part of your body, but it's mostly your pelvic area, your ovarians, fallopian tube, those sort of parts of your body. So that tissue that's found outside your womb obviously shouldn't be there. And it basically breaks down and bleeds the same way the tissue inside your womb does, but the one inside your womb has a place to go, hence you have a period. But the one outside your womb now, which is classed as endometriosis, that bleeds and has nowhere to go. So basically it causes inflammation and it causes pain and a whole host of other symptoms. So one of the main symptoms of endometriosis is painful periods. Obviously, a lot of women experience painful periods, but it's more a case of painful periods that are interfering with your daily activities. So you're unable to do the normal things that you would normally do. A lot of women don't realise that that's not actually normal. It's not normal period. There's often a reason why you're going through so much pain. That's a whole different other story. But so I was diagnosed with that at 15. And so in terms of my journey, I was on different types of medication, different types of birth control pills that would stop my period, pills that basically would suppress certain hormones and things like that. And for me, with the medication, I did have a lot of different side effects from the different medications I was on. Some of them I had to stop because I got migraines, and that basically put me at risk of a blood clot and all different. Some of them made me feel depressed, suicidal. So I was literally going from medication to medication because there's no cure for endometriosis, which is obviously unfortunate considering 1 in 10 women actually experience this, and that's just the statistics that we know, not alone the women who haven't actually been diagnosed. So yeah, I just went through loads of different medication, and it was a very difficult time. It affected every area of my life, I would say. School, getting a job, social life, spiritual life. Obviously, I'll probably go into more of that throughout the rest of today. But yeah, it just affected me in a load of ways, especially mentally, because when you're going through pain, you're going through fatigue, your body's not functioning the way it did before. It's mentally draining. And and you're kind of just in a place of like, why? And I can't do this, I can't do that sort of thing. And it's very draining on your mind. So in terms of that, I thank God, kind of going forward with the story, I thank God that through much prayer, people around me, my grandparents, my mom, friends that would pray for me, I decided to make some changes to my lifestyle in terms of eating habits and just having a better, healthy lifestyle. And I wouldn't say that I'm necessarily free from it, but I definitely know that it has helped relieve what I was going through. It's definitely not, I'm not suffering as much as I was. So I do thank God totally for that. It's definitely the prayer and the changes that I made in my life that have helped me to get to this point where I didn't think I would get to this point, because it's only probably been about a year and a bit, I'd say, that I've had relief from about 6 years of constant pain, because it wouldn't just affect me on my period, it'd be outside my period too. So I thank God for that breakthrough in a sense. But then it was 2019, the end of 2019, I noticed that for whatever reason I didn't know at the time, I was struggling with walking, standing, and it was just causing me a lot of pain. And I just kept thinking, something like, what's going on? Like, this can't be normal. So this year, towards the end of February, I was diagnosed with a rare illness called erythromelalgia. I'm still working out how to say it because it's quite a long word. Many people still can't say it, and I'm just like trying to say it now. But yeah, I've never heard of it before from when I got the diagnosis. So yeah, I was diagnosed with erythromelalgia, which is a neurovascular condition, which basically means it affects your nerves and your blood vessels. Mine specifically affects my hands and feet the most, I would say. So that's something I've been battling with most recently. Like I said, it affects standing, walking, using my hands. So like doing my hair causes me pain in my hands. So that's, again, there's no cure to that. And like I said, it's a rare illness. So obviously I'll go into it, but being diagnosed with a rare illness, if anyone's being diagnosed with rare illness, it's difficult to take because there's not much knowledge out there about it at all. Literally, I'd never heard of it before. So that definitely has been a battle. Basically at the moment, I'm in the process of finding the right treatment to help me with it, to help me manage it, really. And yeah, I'm also at the process of finding out if there is a cause, because it can either be primary or secondary. So I'm kind of still going back and forth with doctors to try and work out what's actually causing the erythromelalgia. So yeah, it's been a difficult journey. I thank God that he's seeing me through it, because it's not complete yet, but he's definitely seen me through. Yeah, that's my story. I hope that was less than 10 minutes.
That was great. Thank you so much for sharing, for letting us into your life. I think it's not easy just to share, but thank you so much, Naya. And we'll get more into the conversation in a bit. I'm going to hand over to Sharina just to share with us.
Hi, everyone. I don't want to say suffer from, because it's not really, I do suffer with this, but yeah, I've got spinal cerebellar ataxia type 3. So there's many types of ataxias. I've got the spinal cerebellar ataxia, and there's many types of that one, and I've got the version 3. Now, I was diagnosed in 2015, and the only way how I got diagnosed was because my brother also has it, and my dad has it. It's a hereditary degenerative disease. that's a mouthful, as well as the condition. But I was diagnosed in 2015. I can remember the date. It was 30th of November, 2015 at 3:34 p.m. I remember the time exactly. And the only reason why my consultant even bothered to test me was because he said, and I quote, "It's probably just paranoia, but I'll just test you anyway because your brother and your father have it." I was like, oh, okay. So that was a diminishing, self-disrespectful tone that he took with me that I didn't appreciate either. But then when I was diagnosed with it officially, I already knew that I had it. But when I was diagnosed with it officially, I didn't see it as an issue because for me it was something that I already knew that I had. I just needed physical confirmation. But ataxia affects, I'm just going to read because there's a lot. It affects predominantly your balance and coordination and speech sometimes, and eye problems. Now, I don't have any problem with my speech, obviously, as yet. It can actually develop later on. But I've got balance and coordination issues to the point now where I have to use two. I can't go anywhere without a crutch. And I use two. So when I'm around the house, I try and use one. But when I go outside, I have to use two. But and it affects my vision in the fact that my vision is always blurred. So sometimes I'm looking at a person and I'm seeing three of that person. Not very promising, is it? But it has a lot of other elements to it. It's kind of like a snowflake condition in the fact that it depends on your lifestyle, how it affects you. So my predominant issues are balance, coordination, eye blurriness, and I've actually been diagnosed with nystagmus as well. But that's a whole nother story. And what else? Daytime fatigue, which I think that's made up because I've never heard of that. Excessive daytime fatigue. I'm always tired. I go to sleep tired, I wake up tired. And the beauty of it is I get maybe 4 hours sleep a night, and that's on a good day. So after I was diagnosed with it, in 2015, it took about 3-4 years before it really started affecting me to the point where I don't want to leave the house. Making plans has become a really big issue because I never know how I'm going to feel. So I can't work. And it's just, I'm sorry, guys. I'm just, really emotional at the moment. But it's, for example, I've made plans with friends in the past and I've had to cancel at the last minute because I feel so tired that I am literally falling asleep trying to get ready. Or I get this thing in my head where I don't want to be a burden on other people. So with my walking, I know that other people tend to slow down to keep up with me, and people tend to watch me even more because I tend to fall over quite a lot. I stumble. It makes it sound, my cry makes it seem like it's so bad, but it's not. Well, it is bad, but it's not as bad as my tears are making it seem. But it's a very rare condition in the fact that I think 1 in, is it 10% of the UK actually know about it, and less than 10% are actually affected by it. but it's such a rare condition that there is no treatment, there is no cure, and the research is very few and far between. But of all the ataxias, my version is the dominant one, except Friedreich's ataxia. That's Friedreich's ataxia affects the heart, and it affects it from a young age. This one can affect it from a young age, but it's hereditary in that it's passed down from my dad's family to my brother and to me. But as it gets passed down, it gets more, I guess, when I say volatile, in the fact that it affected my dad when he was in his late 60s, and it's already affecting me in my 30s. I was diagnosed when I was 28, and no, sorry, I was diagnosed when I was 30, but I had onset symptoms since I was 28, 27. So that's how I knew that I had the condition in the first place. My brother was diagnosed when he was 26, 25. And they say stress makes it worse. Stress makes the symptoms a lot worse and brings it on a lot quicker. And coincidentally, when I was diagnosed, I was actually doing my master's. So yeah, I finished my master's, handed in my dissertation, and then got told that I have this. Not the best news, but it's a process to deal with this because it affects, I want to say, every aspect of my life, because I can't, every morning I get up, it's like I have to teach myself to walk again, not just every day, but every time I stand up. Sometimes I'm walking, I'm trying to walk from my bed to the bedroom door, and I have to lean up against the wall, press my hand up against the wall to get balance. I keep falling back down onto the bed, then stand back up, and it's a process. It's a whole process. And I'm trying to tell my brain, send messages to my knees to bend, and it doesn't bend. So it's like, it's stressful. And it's even more stressful when I think about my family members having to watch this happen to me. But the symptoms can range from very mild symptoms. So when I started, they were very mild, but I think in the past year, they've gotten worse. And it's a case of if you don't use it, you lose it. So muscle atrophy is one of the things that I'm terrified of, because my brother's in a wheelchair and I really don't want to get to that stage where I need a wheelchair. I already thought that I wouldn't actually need a walking stick at this point, but now I'm using two. So obviously that's not working out. It's the only way you can diagnose it really is to I was diagnosed with it through blood test, a genetic blood test that they took and tested or whatever. But yeah, forgetfulness is one of the symptoms as well. Brain fog, because I've just forgotten what I was saying to you guys, to be honest. So yeah, that's my condition, or ramblings anyway, of my head.
Thank you so much for sharing with us, Sharina, as well. And yeah, it sounds so difficult, but I know from knowing you how strong you are, and it's really amazing just to see that as well. So thank you so much for sharing. And last but not least, we're going to hand over to Rianne, and then we'll get into our discussion.
I feel like after hearing Sharina's story, you guys are amazing. I just want to say that, because in comparison, I just feel I don't even know how to express it. But as I said before in my introduction, for a couple of years, I actually didn't know that diabetes was a chronic illness. I I remember having this argument with my mum saying, I don't have an illness, I have a condition. And because people kept like fluttering around me, oh, you know, you're sick, you're a diabetic. And I'm like, I'm not sick. Like, I feel fine. I have my moments. And for anyone who doesn't know, diabetes, well, my diabetes, type 1, my pancreas doesn't work anymore. So when someone without diabetes eats, your pancreas secretes insulin, and this insulin, the glucose that's going around in your bloodstream, it takes it and it allows it to go into your cells. For me, I have to actually inject the insulin before I eat so that it starts its work and then it can work with the glucose. If I don't, there's stuff like you can go into a coma. There's hyper. Sorry, I only know the short name for it because I have all the slang terms for it now. Hypo. So if you don't have enough sugar, you go into hypo. Hyper is if you have too much sugar. But I was diagnosed when I was 10, and it was around Christmas time. I remember I was at school and I was just feeling a lot of pain, like in a lot of pain. Wasn't really talking much, just crying, going to school and I'm laying my head on the table crying. And then I think it was a couple of days and my mum's like, no, I know my child. I know if, you know, sometimes you try to pull a sickie because you don't want to go and do that test or something like that. My mum's like, no, I know this is something serious because this has been going on. I didn't want to play. I didn't want to do anything else but just lay down and cry. So I ended up at the hospital with my dad. We got to the hospital, I think around maybe 10, 11. And I didn't get seen until about 2 a.m. So we were just sitting there waiting. And then after I was seen by the nurse, everything started to move a bit quickly. Then they said that they needed to keep me in. And at this stage, I was just like, I just want to go sleep. So I didn't really know what was going on. So Dad had to go back home and get a bag for me. I stayed. I was in the hospital for a few days, but it's only until I think my second day of being there. There was a lot of tests going on, but when you're a kid, you kind of just, you're exploring your hospital experience. Like I'm seeing other kids and I'm trying to nosy what they're doing and stuff like that. But I kept hearing doctors whispering, and then they put a tube in my hand and they kept coming with these long needles and kept pricking at my skin. And I was just like, okay, that's annoying, but I just thought this was standard procedure. And it's only until I got moved to another hospital, I was told that I have diabetes. And at this point, I didn't know what diabetes was. For me, it was just, oh, it's something you, like, I don't think I'm overweight, so I don't really understand this. And I remember looking at my mum, and my mum broke down in tears. And for me, my mum's a very strong woman. So when I saw her crying, I was thinking, okay, this must be really bad. I didn't understand it, but it must be really bad if she's crying. And then I remember her calling my dad, my sisters. I remember Chelsea crying, Keisha crying. It was a lot. And I was just like, I started getting all of this, my blood tester, the machinery I was going to have to use. And I was actually quite excited. I was like, oh, this is a new toy. But so I think the first couple of years of my diabetes was probably easier because I didn't know much. And my mum had to put in the work in the beginning because I was so young and I didn't really understand. But the only thing is I got the frustration every time I went, because I don't know about other diabetics, but I felt every time I went to the clinic, there was something else that I needed to do. They'd say, oh, well done, you're taking your insulin, but you need to do this. And then the next time, okay, I'm doing that thing that you told me to do, but now there's another thing. And it kept going on and going on. And then the worst part of it is being a Caribbean with diabetes, because you have to carb count. And there's a lot of carb counting books, but for English foods. So trying to work out how much, how the carbohydrates or something, my granddad said, oh, you just dash a bit of that and dash a bit of that in there. That was a struggle. And I've got a sweet tooth. So I was like, I want to eat everything that everyone else is eating. And mom's like, no, you can't have that. You can't have that. And it just started to become frustrating. And I'm not going to lie, as I got older, I started to say to myself, oh, I'm not going to let diabetes rule me. But I also started to neglect it. And I'd go like a couple of days without actually taking my insulin because I'm like, I don't want to take the jabs. You get you have your injection sites, and I was getting big lumps in my arms, in my stomach, on my thighs. And it was just becoming really frustrating. And you know, as you're going through your teenage years, then body image comes into play. And I'm seeing all the girls my age, they've got flat stomachs. And I'm like, okay, I got 2 lumps on mine. I got lumps on my thighs as well. That doesn't look nice. It started to hurt, pricking my fingers because it was leaving like black dots on it. I didn't want to rotate which fingers I was pricking on, because I just thought might as well use the pain in the same area rather than spreading it around. And yeah, I still struggle with my diabetes now. And like you guys have said, I couldn't have done it without God. That's the honest truth, because for me, I was just like, well, what happens, happens. If my body doesn't work properly, I just want to enjoy myself now. But when you're hearing stuff like your body is a temple, I start to think, okay, I can't be saying that I don't care, because if God cares, I should care. And it is a struggle. I still struggle with it now. I'm not going to say having diabetes is easy. You have your good days where you feel like everything's going okay, but it is affected by stuff you do. Like I'm going through uni now. This is my last year. If I get overstressed, my diabetes goes up and down. If I having my monthly cycle, again, blood sugars are all around the place. I have a cousin who she went through pregnancy with diabetes, and that was the very hard experience for her too. I'm not there yet, but that's something to look forward to, you know. But there's just it does affect you. But as I said, I have to thank God, because there are days when I just like, I'm going to forget that I have diabetes. I'm going to pretend like it doesn't exist. But I know it's not the here and the now that it's going to affect, because it's every time you're stopping, you're not taking the injections, it's damaging your body. And yeah, it might be fun at first when you're like, oh yeah, I'm losing weight and I don't have to do any exercise. But as it eats fat, it starts to eat muscle too. And obviously we know that can all go downhill, and it affects your eyes, your hands, your feet, even concentration. If I don't, if my diabetes isn't going good, I know that I struggle with revising. I know a lot of my exams for GCSE, I had to get a bit of extra time because my brain just wasn't functioning, because I wasn't really taking my insulin at the right times. It's just, yeah, a whole load of stuff, but it's a learning curve. And like Sharina said, everyone has that. Diabetes affects everyone differently. You have your common things, but there's always that little thing that you have that's different from everyone else as a diabetic. That it could be that one injection site that you struggle to take your injections in and everyone else is fine with, or that I know some people now have the insulin pumps. That's like a little machine that you just kind of attach to your stomach. And I know I struggled with, I'm like, I don't want to be like a robot. I don't want something attached to me all the time. What if I want to play fight with my sisters and someone rips it out? Like, and all of these things just, yeah, it just goes through your head. And it's a process, but it's with God, it is something you can get through. It is something that you can live with diabetes and you still feel like you're in control. You're still doing what you need to do. It's not even though you, as I said, you do have your days where it feels like, I just can't be bothered. It is something that you work on with God. Like anything in our lives, when we work with God, it just makes it so much easier. And yeah, that's my little bit of a story on diabetes.
Thank you so much. I was like really struggling to unmute myself then. But thank you so much, Rianne, for sharing your story as well. And thank you, everyone. Like, it's crazy because obviously you're all going through completely different things, but you're all so strong getting through it. And you may think that you're not strong, but like, I don't know for Douglas, but like just hearing your stories, I'm just like, rah, like madness. I don't know if you're gonna unmute and speak, but
No, I was just gonna say, I think just listening to all of your story has just made me just I can't. It's just like, wow, like I'm just much more, at least, considerate and thinking more, not only about my own body but other people and what they're going through. Because again, I thank you guys for coming on, first of all, because without hearing this, you don't really understand. I've talked to Sharina before, and sometimes, you don't really hear certain things like this, but once you actually hear what people are going through, it's crazy. But it's so powerful how you guys can come on and just share that, but also just keeping going, because I know it's not easy. But it's just so, for me, I'm as you can see, I'm fumbling here. I'm definitely just losing words, because wow.
Trust me. Someone in the comments said, Shania, Sharina, Rianne, you're also strong inspirations. Thank you for sharing. One thing that we didn't actually address, so we probably should have done this before, but we didn't, so we're going to do it now. Chronic illness. Some people might be out here like, okay, cool, we've heard the stories, we know that you guys are going through a lot, but what actually is chronic illness? Like Rianne said, I didn't even know I had a chronic illness. So can anyone kind of maybe define it, put it in a way that we can all understand? I'm kind of gonna throw it to Shania, but Sharina's got it. Go on.
I'm going to pass it back to Shania in a bit. I want to say, before, when you asked me about it weeks ago, you asked me, is my condition considered chronic illness? I hadn't considered it a chronic illness because it's a part of my life. So it's, for me, you can't get Sharina without spinal cerebellar ataxia or SCA3. So for me, it's just a part of my life. But when I researched it, I was just like, okay, it's a condition, something that you're suffering from that affects every day of your life, every aspect of your life, basically every single day. And that is what this condition is for me anyway. Over to you, Shania.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. But it's definitely something that, because I did Google it, that question. They said, it's something that affects you daily. It affects your life, it affects your everyday activities. So I think for me, I did see mine as a chronic illness, especially like the endometriosis. I think because it affected my everyday life. It affected the choices I made in that day. It affected what I did in that day, what I didn't do in that day. And it also said online that it's usually something that doesn't have a cure. That's usually a chronic illness if there's no cure. And apparently it's something that lasts longer than 6 months. I don't know about that. But I'd say it's just something that long-term affects you long-term and affects your daily activities. Yeah.
So like a basic cold doesn't count as a chronic illness?
No, not really. Unfortunately, I mean, man flu might, but well, maybe not.
No shade, Douglas, no shade. Something that you just touched on actually that I'd kind of like to ask. So each of you just explained, on your day-to-day, what you may be going through, how it may affect you. There was a question that came in through Instagram of asking how your condition or how your illness affects your spiritual life. Maybe daily, maybe, just generally. But how does your condition affect your spiritual life? Or does it affect your spiritual life?
I can jump in on this one. Mine is usually when I'm praying about something else, like other than my diabetes, and then I kind of feel hypocritical because I'm like, well, I'm asking God for this. Like I'll say, because I'm trying to go to the gym and get healthy, I'm like, I before I go, I'll pray and say, God, let me have a good session. Like, let me feel the pain, let me feel the burn. When you have a good leg day or chest day, like you want to feel it. And then I think to myself, I'm so busy focusing on the outside of me, the way I look on the outside. But my diabetes, it does play a part in my spiritual life because, as I said, it affects the way I think. If I'm not taking my insulin like I'm supposed to, if I'm not testing my blood, it makes it hard to pray because I can't focus. It makes it hard to do Bible study because I can read a whole chapter and say, oh my gosh, I don't know what I just read if if I'm not controlling my diabetes in the right way. And so sometimes I'm hesitant to ask God to help with my physical fitness, because I know that I'm not doing the best with my diabetes. And I've had, since the age of 10, I've had that ongoing prayer. God, if you do this for me, I'll start my diabetes. It will get better. And I tell myself that all the time, but it's a step-by-step process. It's not something that's going to change overnight, because like Sharina and Shania said, it's something that we deal with every day. It's no 2 days are going to be the same. We have to go through that process. So for me to say like, okay, God, I'm going to get it, it's all going to be done. Our bodies are changing. My body's still changing. I'm still growing. So for me to say like, yeah, my diabetes is going to be great tomorrow, it's not realistic. But it does make me have that back and forth with God, because I'm like, oh, should I really be asking God for this when I haven't done that? But it does make you think, like, as I said, when you read scriptures, like your body is a temple, when you're taking care of yourself because you're God's. When we think about fearfully and wonderfully made, we apply that to self-esteem, like your physical, but it's also your internal. Every bit of us was formed by God. So if I'm neglecting my diabetes, that's putting a strain on the body that God created for me. So I do have that back and forth, like, oh, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do, but I am trying. So it's like, it's not just pressure on me, like Rianne, you need to get yourself together. I need to get myself together because this is God's body. I'll just have it on loan at the moment. I'm just, roaming around earth with it, but I'm thankful that I have it and I don't want to destroy it. So yeah, sometimes I have that battle with it.
Deep. Thank you. Anyone else want to share?
On my spirituality and dealing with this condition, I've had this conversation with Douglas beforehand. Sorry, I'm shortening your name, Douglas. I don't know why I keep doing that. Anyway, Douglas. I've had this conversation with Douglas beforehand, and I've had it with other people at various points, but because the condition affects my eyesight and my level of tiredness, as well as brain fog and forgetfulness, sometimes I can read, it's like Rianne just said, sometimes I can read a verse, a line, and then I have to reread it like 5-6 times, because as soon as I finish that line, I've forgotten what I've just read. And it gets so frustrating, but then I just keep trying and trying and trying. And because it affects my sight, sometimes I get up, I can't read the Bible because everything's just a blur. And literally I'm like this, trying to read one word, or sometimes I do it like this and then like this, and hopefully sometimes it balances it out, but not a lot of the time. So it's just like sometimes I've had to, in the past year to 2 years, I've had to realize that my devotion life won't ever look the same every single day. So sometimes if I can, I read the Bible. When I can't read the Bible, I'll listen to it, or I'll listen to a sermon, or I'll listen to music or something. But every single day, it's never going to be the same, not with this condition for me anyway. And that's something that I've had to learn, as well as with my prayer life. When I first got diagnosed, I never prayed about this condition, because in my head, this condition wasn't going to affect me. I'm Serena, there's no way that this condition is going to affect me. I'm going to rise above it. Everyone will see that, yeah, I've been diagnosed with this condition, but I'm going to overcome it because of God. And I'm overcoming it, but not in the way that I foresaw it in the first place. And that's the thing. It's like, when I think about before I was baptized and the struggles that I went through before I accepted God into my life, and the struggles that I'm now going through with God in my life, I'm happy that God is in my life, because even though these struggles are even more severe than what I went pre-God, they're more bearable because I have God in my life, because I know that I'm not the only one shouldering all the responsibility of dealing with all the stress. A lot of this is God's. So whenever I feel overwhelmed or whatever, I just take it back to God and just be like, God, this is all you. So you need to get me through this.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Sharina said there, about how your devotional life won't always be the same every day. That's something I've had to kind of adapt to. Because a lot of the time, when you hear people talking about devotion and everything, they say, you know, you should wake up at 6 a.m., 7 a.m., read your Bible, do this, do that. And I'm thinking, God, I really can't do that. Like, sometimes I'll wake up in the middle of the night in pain. Sometimes I'll wake up in the morning and I can barely open my eyes because I'm so tired. Like, with endometriosis, again, it causes fatigue. A lot of chronic illnesses cause fatigue. So I had to realize that that wasn't going to be my devotional spiritual life. So I kind of adapted it. Sometimes in the morning, I might just listen to a song, and then I'll go throughout my day and I'll have spend more time with God in the evening. And I find that works for me. So I think you have to be flexible with it. Know that there's loads of different ways to connect with God. It doesn't have to look the same way as someone who doesn't have your illness, or even someone who has your illness. I just had to realize that God understands. He knows what I'm going through, and don't put too much pressure on yourself to do it one way. Find a way that works for you and your illness. So yeah.
I think that's a really deep point, and I think everyone, whether you have a condition or not, like everyone can get something from what you guys are just saying now. Because I know with what Rianne was saying, about sometimes we feel like we're saying to God, you know, oh, well, if you do this for me, then I'll do this. And the worst thing is, like, most of the time, we don't keep our end of the bargain. Like, we can all admit, like, God comes through and we're just like, so yeah, about that, like, you know, what I said last year, you know, this year I'll do it. And it's a lot of the time we have that battle. And I think it's just, I'm recognizing how amazing God is, because we make these promises and we never keep them, but God always keeps his. And then what Shania and Sharina were saying about the devotions, and like, maybe that's an issue that we feel like we're saying, maybe as a church, like, okay, your devotion has to look like 6 a.m., like you're saying, Shania, like, that's spending time with God, like, it's a relationship. And I guess if you're trying to form a relationship and like every single day is the exact same thing, I'm just like, hi, how's your day? How? Okay, cool, bye. Like that's not how relationships naturally grow, just doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. So maybe that's something for us all to think about, you know. Just before Doug jumps in, someone in the comments said, you three ladies are so inspiring. God bless you all. I'm so proud to call you three my sisters in Christ. Thank you for your comments. Keep them coming. Over to Doug.
Yeah, I think you guys made some I was making notes. I think it's just so important, because I think I was just thinking, like Janelle was saying, in my head, I think maybe generally, I speak for myself anyways, you think, oh, you know, if you're a good Christian, spend time in the morning. But I think you guys' story, it really opened my eyes, that kind of fallacy we have in our head that things should be done a certain way. But if I never knew you guys, and Shania told me she woke up at like 1 o'clock, I'm like, it's a bit late, isn't it? Again, I'm speaking out loud, isn't it? But I think you so put on that. I think guys know you guys a bit more today. Hopefully show me that, listen, people have things we can't see. People have difficulties we can't see. People have different walks that we can't see. Just pray for them, be there for them, and just try and get to know a bit more, because without me knowing this, it's easy for me to just have some prejudgment, things like that. But thank God for sharing that. And I hope really those who are watching as well, just seeing that people are going through things. And for me, it's just so humbling for myself, for you guys sharing that. So thank you guys for sharing that. And kind of just tagging off what you guys have said, similarly, like, how is it in your low days? You know, you guys have various conditions, different conditions. What gets you back up? Because like all of us, we can have low days, but with the chronic illness, it's kind of like something on top of that. How do you get through the low days, and what gets you back up, and maybe some tips on how you, what helps you?
And I just say, these get me through my low days. I love plants. I started growing plants since the first lockdown, and it's been a lifesaver. For one, I can see when I'm propagating something, I can see the roots, and the new life always reminds me of how wonderful God is. And when I see a new leaf, I get so excited. I'm just like, oh, I've got a new leaf. And I tell my mom and I tell my sister, and I'm taking pictures and putting them on WhatsApp status. I'm just like, look at this bad boy that's growing now. Yes, I didn't kill it. So I also love listening to music. I was listening to this song that Natalie shared on a WhatsApp status called The Commission by Kane, and it was absolutely, I've been listening to it on repeat. It touched my heart so much, especially because as a church at the moment, we're going through so much grief and loss, and we've seen so many members that have died, and so many members have got family members who have died, so you feel like you're also going through it. But then that song just reminds me that we are here for something greater than us. And as long as we're walking towards that one task, then life can be a lot easier. But back to the point of what I was talking, what your question was relating to, how do I get to my low days? Sometimes it's not even about getting to the low days, it's just about just getting to the day in general. Because sometimes I wake up and I suffer from chronic depression as well. And sometimes the days are just like, I wake up, put my head up, and then I just go back to sleep because I don't want to face the day. So sometimes we've got to be okay with just being not okay, basically, and stop trying to always fix ourselves and stop trying to always do the most. Like I'm a fan of lists, so I make to-do lists every single day, but then I always forget to check that to-do list. So I waste paper, quite frankly. But sometimes I check things off of this and it feels satisfactory. The fact that I've done this, oh, I've had a good day today because I've done like 3 things. But then there are days sometimes when I go through, like for every one good day, I might have 5 bad days. And I've just got to learn to accept the fact that bad days are part of the course. When Christ was on this earth, all of Christ's days weren't good days. Let's be honest, when they wanted to stone him, when they chased him out of towns, those weren't good days, but he did what he needed to do to look after himself. So he connected with his Father, and that's all that we can do.
Wow, that's powerful. Powerful. I don't know if Rianne or Shania wants to add anything else, or I got there. How are you liking your low days? Yeah.
Okay, I'll go next. Yeah, I agree with what Sharina said in terms of sometimes I put it down in my notes, and I was like, sometimes it's just enduring that day. Literally, you're counting down the hours till the day is finished. Because there's so many times I've just been in so much pain. My pain medication isn't touching the pain, and I'm just crying out to God, like, God, please let this pain go away. Let me get to sleep. And every time I've done it, he's done that for me, which I'm thankful for. Every time I've managed to just get some sleep. But sometimes there's not much you can do apart from endure. But I'd say some of the other things that help me on my low days is definitely, again, speaking to God and journaling, just writing down my feelings, writing down my thoughts, being totally honest with God, saying, I can't get through this, I can't deal with this anymore. And just, being in his presence and feeling his comfort. Definitely music helps me. The days where I can't physically get out my notepad and write, and I'm just in pain, or I'm just really fatigued, so I'll play a song, and I find that when I listen to gospel music, it just naturally uplifts me. I can't recall a time I've ever listened to gospel music and it's never uplifted me. I cannot recall a time. So yeah, that's definitely something that helps me. Also, on my low days, or something I'd say that helps me through my chronic illness, is I join support groups on Facebook. So I'm in a support group for my endometriosis, support group for my erythromelalgia, and I saw a quote the other day, and it was basically saying like, you won't. I think if I remember it correctly, you won't get chronic illness until you get it. So it's very true. A lot of people aren't really going to understand what you're going through if they don't have it. Even people that have it, they're not going to understand it in its entirety. But when you connect with other people who might have the same thing, and you can talk about what you're going through, you can talk about your symptoms, I find that does help. Where there's support, where there's community, I feel like it empowers people. So for me, that's something that helps. So I'd encourage anyone else who might be feeling alone in their illness, especially with the recent one I had, which is a rare illness. It's hard to find anybody who has it. I found that there was a support group, and it made me realize, okay, there's other people out there that are going through what I'm going through, and like people put in encouraging messages, and you can even put like prayer requests in and things like that. So I find that definitely has helped me through my low days. So yeah.
Can I just quickly add, on top of what Shania has just said about forums? I'm part of forums as well. And there's one called Health Unlocked that's for people with conditions as well as the carers of people with those conditions as well, those chronic illnesses. And it's amazing to see when you consider the perspective of the people who are there supporting you, their perspective of what they're going through as well as what you're going through, because it's easy enough for us to go through these conditions and think, well, we're in our own, we're experiencing it's worse for us, but it's also can be as worse, if not worse, for the people who are caring for us, who actually have to look at us going through this condition and try and support us, and knowing that there's nothing that they can do to take away our pain. So I would encourage anybody, if you're a carer or if you're somebody who's got chronic illness, find support groups, because it's amazing, like Shania said, to have to find people who are your tribe.
Wow. Yeah, I think I didn't realize that's wow. Okay, so support groups, just perspective. Okay, so if mom is tagging on that before, maybe Anna wants to share. So in support groups, can you just simply join? Is it like it's just such a support group? Maybe some people watching.
Yeah, so what I did when I was diagnosed with endometriosis when I was a teenager, I literally just typed in endometriosis on Facebook, and I joined a UK group and one that's worldwide. So I think they will just like, there's a questions that they'll ask you before you join. Like, are you diagnosed with endometriosis? You don't have to be. It can be for people as well who suspect that they have it. So basically they can join and they can put their symptoms in there. Obviously no one's like medically trained or whatever to give you like medical advice, but people will say like, consult your doctor, or yes, this sounds like endometriosis, go through these tests. That's something that actually helped me with being diagnosed with erythromelalgia, is basically like online Facebook groups and things like that. So yeah, you just literally can type it in, whatever you have, and more than likely there will be a group, because there's loads for all types of illnesses.
Well, thank you for touching on that. Yeah, I don't know, Rihanna, I'm not sure if you wanted to share, you don't have to, but on kind of how you cope or.
I was going to say I wouldn't say, I think my low days build up. I'm known by my family for not speaking as soon as something starts to get on top of me. So usually with diabetes, it's kind of like it affects other things in your body. So it's not the diabetes itself sometimes that's the problem, but it's the effect of the diabetes that causes something else. So for mine personally, it affects my skin and my nails if my blood sugars aren't controlled. And anyone who knows me, I like to pay attention to detail. So when I get stuff like brittle nails, and my nails will like crack down the middle, and that kind of stuff can ache or be very painful. But on top of that, it's just frustrating to see. And sometimes it's just saying, okay, I'm starting from scratch. Instead of saying, okay, this went wrong, that went wrong, I'll just say, I wasn't controlling my diabetes the way I should have, but tomorrow or even now, I'm going to make sure I take my blood before I take my injections, because I'm supposed to take 4 a day, and to prick yourself 4 times a day, sometimes it can be a lot. And we live in a townhouse, so there's 3 floors. If I'm downstairs in the kitchen, I just want to eat there and then, like, you know, you're having a rough day, you know, I just want to stuff some food in my mouth, make myself feel better. But then I'm like, okay, I have to remember to get my insulin. I'm like, I don't want to do this. This is too much. But I know on my low days, my sisters are great. Like, even if sometimes they get lazy, especially the little one, she'll say, okay, I'll go and get your insulin for you then. And even that, something that's so small to them, that means a lot to me, because I may not want to do it. Or even my older sister, who would say, I'm not eating my food until Rianne's taking her injections. So if I'm like, I really don't want to take it, she's like, go on, like, I'll wait for you. We can do it together. Carbohydrate counting, when I first started, because that really took me on a journey, they would all carbohydrate count with me. My mum changed our whole diet, all of the family. We're all now pescatarians, because my mum cut out a lot of, like, we don't eat chicken, no beef, curry goat, all of that stuff, all the good stuff that my mum, when I got diagnosed, my mum made sure that our diets got healthy. It wasn't just Rian has to eat differently now, we all do. And I think my family's support, that's a big thing. Just even just saying, Rian, how's your diabetes going? Sometimes I'm going through a rough patch, and just someone asking me, it's just like, you know. And even if someone says, you know, you've been on my mind, I've been praying for you. Sometimes I didn't even realize I'm having a rough day until someone says that. And I'm like, do you know what? I noticed that my skin looks bad because my diabetes hasn't been going well. My nails don't look good. I'm feeling really tired, but it's just, oh, I've been praying for you. I don't know why, but God told me to. That little stuff. And as you guys said, the music as well, just sometimes just understanding that my problem is like that big in comparison to all that God can do. Like, sometimes you have to, like you guys said, change perspective. When you're seeing it from a different angle, when you're understanding that this is an end of you, like, we have our conditions, but we're all still here. And even the struggles that we're saying we're going through, we're still here, and we're still talking about the struggles because we survived that part of the struggle, and we're going to the next stage. And even though that sounds scary, because even saying it for myself, it is scary to know that there's another stage of this, but it's the fact that we got through that day, so now we can get through the next day, because we got through the first one we had that we thought we weren't strong enough to get through. So it's just, yeah, sometimes for me, it's actually the smallest thing. Someone just asking, are you okay? How are you doing? Or can I try this with you? Like, just, I haven't actually joined any groups, but I thank you guys for, you know, putting that out there, because my mum did suggest, but, you know, sometimes you're like, yeah, okay, yeah, I'll do that. But just hearing other people saying like it helps, I feel like that's something that I could try as well for my, you know, for the days when I'm struggling as well.
Thank you for sharing, guys. I think there's something that you kind of touched on, which leads me on to 2 questions, which are linked. So it's not going to be a pow, but something that, you know, I don't know how you guys feel about this, but so if a friend or somebody is asking you practically, like, how can they help? First question, do you find this patronizing? Like, let's say me or Doug just be like, oh, how can I practically help you? It's like patronizing, kind of like, you really don't understand what I'm going through. And leading on from that, how can we best support friends, or family members, or let's say friends? Like, how would we best support friends who have a chronic illness? or who have just been diagnosed with a chronic illness, maybe. So yeah, I don't know if it's meant to be two separate questions, but I guess you can answer whichever one you've remembered. So is it patronizing to ask for someone asking you for practical help? And I guess if not, how do we support?
I don't think it's patronizing for me personally. I can say sometimes it's frustrating. Like if I go into hypo, so hypo is when, you know, you don't have enough sugar going around your system, or glucose, sorry. It doesn't, so basically I can be sitting here talking to you guys and then I can't lift my arms, I can't move my legs. I start to slump in my chair because I can't, now I'm kind of losing feeling over my body because I don't have the energy. And, but that can happen like in an instant. And then in the same time it took for me to get into hypo, I can get out of hypo and I'll just be normal again and just talk like nothing happened. And I know people do it to like, are you okay? But it's like for the rest of the people who have never experienced me going to hypo before. So I don't get mad because I know it's just something you have to get used to. They'll keep checking on me like, do you feel sick? Do you need to go home? But it's like, it's only maybe a 5-minute thing. That if I get sugar in me quick enough, it will go up and I can start moving around and doing what I need to do. But sometimes I get that, oh, no, don't do that because it's a bit too much for you, or you can't touch that. Like, but I can do stuff. It happens for that moment and then you kind of bounce back out of it. Don't get me wrong, there are some times when I've gone solo, like I can't swallow, so I have to get a gel pushed in my mouth. That takes me longer to get out of, and it probably does drain me. Like I can't do much for the next hour or so, but most of the time it's just a kind of a bounce back. But in terms of how to go about it, I mean, for me personally, I still feel it's okay for someone to say, how can I help? Because like I said, if it's something even as small as, oh, I'll wait for you to take your insulin, and then that's it, even though you're not taking insulin with me, just your support makes me feel like you care, kind of thing, and that you're trying to do what you can do from your position. Because I'm not going to say to you, yeah, let's take injections together, because you don't need it. But you saying that you'll wait for me to have my food, that's nice. Or even saying I'll get your food for you so that you can take your insulin, so that by the time we all sit down to eat, we're all eating at the same time and not you having to, you know, to get your food and then come back and then do all of that. But I think, yeah, for me personally, I'm not speaking for everyone, for me personally, I think it's okay to just say, how can I help? Because then I can then decide what I want you to help me with. But just, yeah, if that made sense.
Yeah, definitely made sense. I'll be asking you. Thank you.
I think for me, yeah, I'd say that I don't think it's patronizing either. I do welcome help. If someone asks me, how can I help you? Then I feel like I will say. I definitely agree with Rianne where she says that sometimes it can be frustrating in the sense that, like, I don't know, people obviously they want to care for you, they want to look after you, but I think sometimes you have to try and allow the person to do what they want to do in that moment, or what they feel they can do, because again, different days, different things I might be going through. So I think sometimes it's also giving them that space to, if they feel that they can do something, just allow them to do it and don't push too much and be like, no, just allow them. Obviously, if it's really detrimental, then it's different. But I think in terms of like how best someone can support someone who's been diagnosed, I think definitely doing your own research is a big thing. I think sometimes, you know, with my recent diagnosis, obviously being a rare illness, no one's really heard of it. I think it's also nice for someone to say, oh, okay, I looked up and I can see how this affects you, like rare tear. But I just think sometimes when people are like, oh, what's that? What is it? What is it? And you're like, you have to then explain and everything. And especially if you've just had a diagnosis, it's a bit much to go into complete detail. So I think just someone doing a bit of their own research really helps. I'd also say supporting the person in terms of like their appointments, their tests, just asking them like, oh, you told me that you had a checkup last week. How did it go? How did your test results go? Like, obviously, if you're close, just checking up on them in that sense, just showing that you care, basically. I think there are definitely ways. And also praying for the person, praying with the person, helping them to take their mind off it as well, because it's not always that we want to just be sitting thinking about it. Sometimes, you might want to kind of wallow in it, but it's nice to have someone as well that will try and help take your mind off of it, even in the moment you might not want to. But I feel like it's also a positive thing, to try and, I don't know, just do something fun. It could be send you a funny video or just do something fun. I find that definitely helps in supporting someone. So yeah.
COVID secure fun.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. Anything to add, Sharina, before we start to wrap up?
I would say it's now where I'm at now, I can honestly say I don't mind somebody offering to help me practically. Beforehand, I would have found it patronizing. God's taking me on a journey. God is working on me, guys. And I know I happily accept help, and I'm realizing that I can't do everything by myself. And that's something that I've had to come to terms with, that the things that I used to do, I can't do fully anymore. So even something as simple as when I was a couple months ago, I had ordered a dressing table from IKEA, and I was setting it up, and I asked my mom to come and help me to put a part of it on top because it was heavy. And I knew as soon as I leant over, then that would turn my balance off and I would just fall over onto it. And even that element of just like, I felt so proud of myself. I'd actually asked somebody to help me. I was just like, yeah, I'm growing, Sharina, you're growing. But in terms of best ways to support someone who's newly diagnosed, like Shania said, doing your own research. I hate, whenever I call up my doctors, I have to explain to them the condition over and over again. So I've stopped going at my GP for anything, unless there's a limb not falling off or bloodshed going up my arm. Then that is the only reason that I really call up my doctors, because I don't see why I'm calling you guys up to explain to you my condition when you've got notes there on your screen. And that also goes for people who, if I've told you I've got spinocerebellar ataxia 3, yes, it's a mouthful, but if you Google it, SCA3, you can also find out things about it, things that I've had people come up to me and say things about my condition that I'm just like, really? Because every month I try and do more research on it, because there's always more papers that have been released or something, some new drug or something like these, or like the forums that say somebody might suggest a supplement or something like that that might have just come on the market that you can research and look into. And I've had people just said, I had somebody that I was friends with in primary school message me about some natural supplements, and he was just like, yeah, I just heard about your condition. I just thought I'd send you this because I'm into natural medicines and this is supposed to help you. I'm going to look into it. It's really good for my condition. So I'm just like, thanks, mate. Great source of help, great source of information. I haven't spoken to you in decades, but good reaching out, good looking out. But then it's just like, other ways you can support people. It's when I say, okay, I'm okay, then accept that I'm okay. Don't think that I'm just saying it just to make you feel better about yourself or to make me feel better about myself. If I'm okay, I might not be okay by your standards, but I'm okay by my standards. So just leave it there. Don't keep asking me over and over again, because eventually you will get an angry black person speaking back to you, and nobody ever wants that. But yeah, those are the best ways I can think of to support.
Thanks for sharing that. I think I'm one of those people that would be like, but are you actually okay? Like, but I can help you though. And I know you'd give me the truthful answer. So thanks for the heads up. We'll take you're okay as you're okay. And I think just a thought to us for like, it's okay to ask if we can help in any way. And if the answer is no, the answer is no. That's totally cool. If the answer is yes, then let's be actually prepared to help and, you know, get a plate of food for Rianne. Like, you asked, but you asked, so she answered, you know. This has been really insightful. Someone in the comments has just said, very thankful for the insights. Interesting to hear of ways to reach out and help. So thank you to our whole panel just for being here, for having this conversation, for being real. Just as we wrap up, is there any words of encouragement that you could give to anyone out there? So there may be people watching who have a condition, have a chronic illness, have an illness, anything that you can give to encourage them and just help them on their way. I don't know. I feel like I'm gonna call your names out, but that feels a bit weird. Do you know what I mean?
I think it'd be easy if you did call our names out so we don't overtalk each other. I think that's the fear.
All right, Sharina, go for it. You're speaking.
Okay. Words of encouragement for anybody who's got a chronic illness is when you're absolutely down and you're feeling like it's never going to get any worse, it's never going to get any better rather, then just look up. God's got you. And there have been many times since in the past year we have cried out to God, and I've lost faith in my identity, I've lost faith in me, but I've never lost faith in God. And that's something that you've got to hold on to. Hold on to God. I know a lot of church members say that you've got to hold on, keep holding on. And sometimes you think to yourself, are they being patronizing? But honestly, that's all I can say really. Just hold on to God, hold on to your faith, and whatever moments of joy you can get, grab it, and always put that in your memory bank, and always you trying to remember the moments of joy that you had in the past, because you will have more joy in the future.
Thanks, Sharina. Rianne?
I'd say give yourself a chance to catch up with yourself. And I know that sounds like a whole mouthful, but sometimes we set ourselves goals for this is where we should be, this is what we should have done, this is what we should be achieving, and making unrealistic goals, like Sharina just said, you miss out the moments of joy. And I think it's just taking it bit by bit, allowing yourself to make mistakes, because like other people around you who are learning about your condition, you too are still learning about it. There's still new things that are going to come up, and we keep growing, as I said before. So there are going to be things that trip you up and you're like, wow, I didn't expect this, but it's not for you to stay in that town. It's not for you to stay in the tripped up town. You get back up and you go and move on. You keep going on your pilgrim's walk, because it will get better. And like Sharina said, you will have your times where there is joy, and that's the times that you have to remember to get you through the harder times.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm gonna take that. Tripped up town, you know.
Tripped up town?
Yeah, I just not staying in tripped up town, getting out. Last but not least.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you guys have said about, like, especially looking up to God, because he's the one who's sustained me, and I believe sustained all three of us through this, and sustained anybody out there who's going through chronic illness. But I definitely would say as well, it's something that has helped me, even though it's difficult, but you know your body, and don't give up on your body, don't give up on yourself, because when doctors may say to you, it's all in your head, or, you know, it's just anxiety, or it's just this, it's just that, you know your body, you know what you're going through. Do research, find support groups, just stick with it. If you're trying to get diagnosed, stick with it, and, you know, get a pain diary. That's something what I've done, basically like writing down your symptoms, because for me, I'm still on my journey of actually with everything now, just still finding out what's causing it, because I do believe there's a secondary cause. So yeah, it's difficult. The journey is difficult, but I definitely would say just stick with it. Trust in God, because He will lead you. He will speak to you. He will guide you. And yeah, don't give up on yourself. So, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Something
Go ahead.
Something that I read, I think it was Laura had this on a status, on a WhatsApp status, where something that you realize with seasons is that they do change. So today you might have a really bad day, and nothing's wrong with having a really bad day. No one's saying that you're not allowed to have bad days, but just don't stay there for an eternity. Don't. Misery likes company, but nobody likes to be around miserable people. That's a fact.
Someone in the comments said, God bless all of you. Your pain is not wasted. Your witness in the difficult times is a living testimony to the goodness and love of God, and your resilience, your reliance, on God will be rewarded. And someone said, yeah, Shania. Thank you all for your words of encouragement as well. Just came through. So, thank you, panel. I'm going to pass over to Doug, because I think he words things a lot better than I do.
No, I think, Shania, Rianne, Sharina, thank you guys for coming on, because again, one, it's not easy to talk about these things and to be open about it, but thank you for being open, and people who have tuned in and who will tune in will definitely be encouraged, and you've definitely taught me a lot, and I'm sure Natalie as well. I'm sure each other as well, different points that you guys have said. So thank you guys for coming on. Thank you guys for being strong, and for willing to come on to this, because it's not easy to talk about, but I'm definitely seeing God through your experiences and give me such a better vision, a better understanding of who God is to what you guys have gone through as well. So thank you for that so much. And even those at home, you've seen what you guys have said, and the encouragement they've been given, what they've gone through, how they get back up, what helped, what doesn't help. Them down. Your friend is eating one day and she needs insulin. Wait for a bit, take some time, ask for help, be helpful, just be there for them, and yeah, thanks so much for you guys coming on. So yeah, be encouraged, and God is with us, and He's always there with us. So thank you so much, guys, for coming on. I'll just close in prayer unless anyone has anything else to add. But I'll just close in prayer and then pray for Sharina and Shania and Rianne and everyone at home as well, who may be going through this difficult situation. So I'll pray. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, Lord, thank you so much for today's session, Lord. Opening one, Lord, just to see these three strong women, Lord, who have come on to share what they're going through, Lord. But amidst the difficulties, ups and downs, Lord, we can see that you are in the midst of their life, Lord. Lord, I pray that you may continue to encourage them and strengthen them, Lord. Because you say, Lord, when we are weak, then we are strong. So, Lord, help them and those at home also to see that you are there with them every step of the way. You're not ignorant of what they're going through, their tears, the doubts, their questions, Lord, is not in vain, because you know exactly what they're going through, Lord. Like you said in Psalms, Lord, you've engraven them on us in your palm of your hands. So thank you so much for being our source of joy, being our source of help. Be those at home. We're going through this difficult situations too, suffering chronic illness, Lord. Help them to realize, Lord, that you are there with them every step of the way. Forgive us for your fallen short, Lord, and thank you so much for being God of comfort in our lives. It's my simple but humble prayer. In all the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Doug. Just want to say thank you again to our panel for joining us, for being willing to share and be real with us. And God bless you guys. And I want to say hopefully we'll get to see you again on another panel discussion. But then that means like there's something else that you're just going to come and talk about, which is great, which is, who knows?
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. before we leave, just to let everyone know, next week we have can I say, Douglas? Yeah. It's our last session of evidence next week, and we're going to be talking about being a pastor's kid. So that is our next edition, but it's the last session of evidence. So from then on, we're just going to be having Let's Be Real and Common Room Connect. Who knows, more things may come up. So stay tuned, keep a lookout on social media, and everything will be there. But for now, good night, 7-ish. You know, we never say 7-ish. So yeah, have a good night, everyone, and God bless. Thanks for joining.